All right, guys. Well, welcome to the February edition of the Sugar House Community Council. Again, we have a pretty busy agenda. So thanks for joining us tonight and welcome to the new attendings tonight. Just a heads up, but the majority of the trustees on here with the community council started on this board with a single issue in their own neighborhood. So you've kind of been warned. Welcome to the community. Just a reminder that because of Zoom bombing, everyone will be muted except for the speakers. Most questions will be handled in the chat. People are pretty good typers at this point, so it's never really an issue. I'm going to make a motion to make Shane Stroud our new secretary. It's been empty for a little while, but with our bylaws, we need to fill it. And Shane's been awesome to step forward and do it. So can I get a second? Thanks, Derek. Any opposed? Awesome. Welcome aboard, Shane. Thanks for doing that.
Sure thing.
And then I'm just going to move. We'll just have you go right ahead.
Okay, well, as my first official act as secretary, last meeting we talked about the bylaws changes, and after that meeting I circulated a final version. There aren't any substantive changes at all to the bylaws since our last meeting. I think if anything, I just added, like, I adjusted, paragraphs so they didn't break across pages, and added some hash marks at the end of it just to make sure that it looked official. And but otherwise, it's exactly what we talked about. The only thing I did add was during the meeting, we discussed a provision that would allow for a member of the Sugar House Park to come and sit on the board, much like the change that allows someone from the Sugar House Chamber. And I think everybody had a chance to look at that. So what we need to do tonight is, unless anyone has any other changes or concerns, if somebody could make a motion to approve those bylaws. Oh, let me make one more note. I told you last month that I would update attachment C with the new decennial census information for the so that we would know exactly whether the amount of trustees would change for any neighborhood. I haven't done that yet. I apologize, completely slipped my mind. So if we approve these tonight, then next month we can go through and just approve the attachment C and then just file that as an addendum. But we can approve the bylaws tonight unless there are any changes. So unless there are, if somebody could make a motion to approve those bylaws, and then if somebody will second and we'll vote. So it looks like Judy's moving to approve. Rich Knickerbocker is seconding. All in favor? And any opposed? Let me just look at both pages to make sure. All right, it looks like it's unanimous. If there are any oppositions that I somehow missed, just type it into the chat. Otherwise, it looks like the bylaws are adopted. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for all the work, Shane. You're a lot smarter than I am. All right, we're gonna go.
I don't know about that, but
yeah,
happy to do
it. Thank you. We're gonna go to the mayor of Salt Lake City, Erin Mendenhall.
Hey, Sugar House. Nice to be with you. I love that introduction, Landon, that a lot of people came in to the community council with a single issue affecting their neighborhoods. That is legitimate across like every community council district. But Sugar House is so unique in that you are the entire district. And there's nothing else like that in the city, as you know, and such an incredible institutional knowledge with a lot of the faces I see on this screen who kind of even reared me up in city work a decade ago or so. So thanks for giving me a moment. I'm glad I logged on early. I know these agendas can vary wildly. So I want to give a shout out to Tim Cosgrove, who I know hangs out with you at pretty much every community council meeting you hold. I think Tim is fantastic. Thanks for being here. And I appreciate you being my representative, Tim, in all these meetings that you come to. Yeah, go Tim. I would love to mostly answer your questions, but would it be okay if first I give you a little recap on the state of the city? I did my address just last week. I'm sure you all tuned in. It's a riveting 50 minutes of local public government dialogue, only by yours truly. And honestly, I had a really good time doing it because Salt Lake City and our staff are just rocking it right now. There is an incredible amount of volume coming through the city. And I mean that from building permits, which are above and beyond anything we've ever seen before, to the value of projects that are happening, which is actually more than $1 billion more than we've seen before. And the number of housing units last year, Salt Lake City supported financially the creation of the number, I think it's 352 or something, affordable housing units, more than we've ever done in a single year. And there's more than 700 affordable units in the pipeline coming our way. And many of those are deed restricted. So there's a lot going on, a lot of lane miles that we're filling potholes on and repairing. But most of what I talked about is around air quality. And we are enjoying really uniquely beautiful air right now in February, for February. But usually, it's one of the worst months of the year for inversion. And on February 8th, we're going to celebrate the 20th anniversary of hosting the world with the Winter Games. And I thought it would be a really cool thing as the Winter Games have their opening ceremonies on Friday, that if we kind of did something to remember our games and also looking forward, hopefully, to hosting a 2030 or 2034 Winter Games again. So I sometimes get these wild ideas and I try to soft underhand pitch them to who I need to say yes. And in this case, it was UTA. And sometimes those big ideas are not unique. And I think everybody wanted in their hearts for this to happen. So I said, what if we had free fare for the whole month of February, just in Salt Lake City, and no cost for any of the system? We've never, ever had a free fare for that long. And God bless Carlton Christensen, former Salt Lake City councilman, who's now a trustee of the UTA, said, well, it'd be really hard to just do Salt Lake City. Maybe we could do like the county. And then it snowballed, and Mayor of Ogden, Mayor of Provo said, we want to do this too. And the metropolitan planning organizations, which for us is Wasatch Front Regional Council, and down in Utah County is called the Mountain Land Association of Governments, stepped up generously with some of their federal dollars they have and helped us, along with a bunch of just people contributing to cover the cost of doing the entire system. So just starting yesterday, if you didn't know it, the entire UTA system is free for the whole month of February. And that includes ski bus and front runner and everything else. We've never had such a grand experiment with transit in the state of Utah. I think the last biggest time was when the Olympics were here and the system was kind of newly opened up, and you could ride portions of it for free during the Olympics, but that wasn't even this long. So please, if you don't usually ride transit, or maybe you use it for one certain thing, but not others, I hope that you might find at least a couple of times this month to try it out, because as Salt Lakers, we invested starting in 2018, our sales tax dollars to buy up service from UTA. So the bus on 21st South, 9th South, 6th and 10th North, 2nd South, those buses are running on our dime every 15 minutes, sometimes a little longer at the late stretches, 7 days a week. And we're going to keep growing the system. So I think affordability and convenience are the two things to overcome. And this is a really cool experiment on affordability. The other big thing on air quality, there's kind of a lot going on in air quality, but the biggest thing is that, which is the biggest lever local government can do, is that we've figured out how we are getting 100% net renewable energy to every Salt Lake City plug and light fixture and generator and anything. by 2030, if not before. And when I ran for office, we thought that it would be in a no holds barred negotiation with Rocky Mountain Power. And as it turned out in the 2020 legislative session, we worked with them and a couple dozen other cities in the state who also want 100% renewable energy to get basically a law passed that outlined exactly how we are going to get there and the process we're going through. So Councilmember Dan Dugan, I asked him to serve on Salt Lake City's behalf on this Community Renewable Energy Agency. It's a mouthful, but if you hear Renewable Energy Agency for Salt Lake City, I want you to know that that is our path to 100% renewable, and we are on our way. So they're coming up with a fee structure in these next many months. And within the year, they're going to go to the Public Service Commission. And basically the PSC will hopefully approve the rate structure, and then we can get to the process of going out to bid for all sorts of renewable energy to fill the needs of these more than a dozen cities who are asking for renewable energy. And it should not cost us anything more than we already pay. So it's just a air quality girl dream come true. This free fare February and 100% renewable finally. And the last thing I'll tell you, besides the EV infrastructure that we're working to build out, our own fleet that we're trying to switch over to EV, and the 80 megawatt solar farm that we just broke ground on in the fall that will bring almost 100% of the cities, as in the library and public safety building and city hall. We will be almost 100% renewable by early 2023. One of the other big things is, and I'm thanking Councilmember Fowler, council supported a chunk of money that we invested in the lawnmower exchange program. So we go from climate, carbon emissions, mega power production through electric vehicle infrastructure and solar power coming in, and then right down to your backyards. We helped the state, who's done a lawnmower exchange program for a long time, but a lot of Salt Lakers didn't participate. So we funded a big chunk for us, and specifically set aside a quarter of that for West Side residents, at least a quarter for West Side residents, where air quality is usually the worst in the city. And so we were able to increase, we quadrupled the number of Salt Lakers who got the electric lawnmowers, and we're able to trade in their gas guzzlers because they produce an incredible amount of pollution. There's no catalytic converter, and you usually mow your lawn right when ozone is being produced in the heat of the evening or early in the morning. And we're gonna do it again this year. That'll be a part of the budget I'll bring to the council. So we're working on improving our air and reducing our carbon emissions at every level. And it's pretty exciting. Oh, thanks, Tim. You put that in the chat. So you can check it out. There's a lot of details on it, but we're rocking right now as best we can, given the fact that we're still in a pandemic and about 67% of our city is fully vaccinated, which is lower than that of the county, but higher than that of the state. And those numbers are getting kind of stagnant, still slight increases in each zip code, but they're leveled out somewhat. So I hope you're well. And I hope that if you've been able to get a vaccine and get your booster, that you've done that. And thisisourshot.org or .com is the way to find out where those free, no appointment necessary vaccines are. Landon, I think there's a couple issues that are specific to that, or that the community's particularly interested in. Do you want me to just open it up to questions, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
Do you see the one in the chat?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Says homelessness is an issue throughout Salt Lake City. Clearly, both the county and state need to step up and help SLC protect and care for the unhoused. What are your views on equitable distribution of homeless facilities throughout the city? Do you support facilities on the east side?
Yeah. Hi, Ben. Ben, I don't think you and I have met in person, so nice to meet you. And great questions. This was the other kind of big part of my State of the City address, and I won't go into the 20-minute segment that was, but if you want to hear more about my position on all of this, you can check it out. I think we'll put a link in the chat, but I've been asking the state to step up in a bigger way, really directly since the first week of August of last year, when the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness, which is over all of Salt Lake County, and they are who the state and the federal government through HUD have designated as the responsible entity for figuring out shelters and emergency overflow winter shelters. And so even though a lot of people think it's Salt Lake City shelters, or that we will make a decision about whether or not there should be another shelter, it's actually not ours, even though it seems that way, and we've taken a lot of responsibility on for what is a statewide humanitarian crisis. And I tell you that it's a statewide humanitarian crisis because certainly we know that there are economic troubles in a lot of our rural areas in the state, where there's a change in fuels and technologies and the economies. And we know that there aren't resources for people who experience homelessness in most cities in this state. I also know that mayors and council people from other parts of this county and outside of the county have looked me in the eye and said, well, if we find someone who's experiencing homelessness in our city, we put them in the back of the cop car and take them to Salt Lake and drop them off there, because that's where the resources are. That is totally unsustainable for any city, but it's the reality for about 5 cities: Logan, Ogden, Salt Lake City, St. George, and Provo to some extent, although they don't have a homeless resource center. And they also have a zero tolerance policy for on-street homelessness, which has been explored in the Tribune over the last year. So the city can do and will do all that we can, leading with compassion, but it is unsustainable for us as residents and taxpayers to take responsibility for really a statewide need. Last year, we spent over $25 million as Salt Lake City, addressing the acute needs of the homeless and the impacts of so many unhoused people on our public spaces. So I'm asking the state to do what they do every year for South Salt Lake and Midvale, who host homeless resource centers, which is give us the mitigation support that you give those other cities. And honestly, Ogden and Logan and St. George deserve it as well. And they've had that money since they opened those resource centers, the new ones. And we have to compete for it every year with every other city who doesn't get anything. Some years we get nothing. So that's a piece of work that we are hoping to see come through the legislative session, is guaranteed basically impact dollars for us to manage the quality of life around the homeless resource centers that we host, and even in other parts of the city. So we shall see what comes through on that. In addition, we know that we need mental health resources, that there's like that, there's the 80-20 rule for so many things. And it is somewhat true for some of the on-street impacts in the downtown core in particular, but definitely not exclusive to that. North Temple corridor, parts of State Street, and many other parts of the city. There's a relatively small number of individuals who end up having a tremendous amount of impact on the quality of life and the safety in areas they're preyed upon. And we know that larger encampments attract criminal activity that really doesn't mind taking advantage of people and using that cloak. So in 2023, the Huntsman Mental Health Institute or Center will open in South Salt Lake next to the Men's Homeless Resource Center there. But until that, which will be a crisis receiving center, basically, if someone is in mental health crisis, and they could arrive there themselves, or if they call 911 and they need help getting there, our officers or fire department or our co-responder model with our social workers would be able to bring them there and be able to receive mental health support. Right now, maybe we can take them to the hospital. It's unknown, on a day-to-day basis, if the emergency room would admit them or has the capacity to deal with that. And they're often back out on the street. And so we really, really need this mental health service, and it's coming. It's just not coming soon enough. So we've also asked the state to fund an interim program, perhaps with the same mental health partners, to be able to have somewhere where people in need who are living out their crisis without the assistance they need on our streets could get better help. There's a number of other things, Ben, that I've asked for, like I'll just try to wrap up by saying the distribution. I tried to kind of explain that at the top, like we don't direct where resource centers go at this point, and nor are they talking about new permanent homeless resource centers. They are looking for the possibility of a permanent winter shelter location, so that it's not February next year as it is right now, when they are finally able to open the low barrier winter overflow shelter, which we asked for back in August, but unfortunately it's only now coming online. And then when we did cite the resource centers in, I want to say 2016, when we did that, whether you like this or not, I wanted us to put one at the Sugar House DI. And I didn't support the location that was in a single family neighborhood. No single family neighborhood should shoulder that on its own. The other locations that they ended up being at have, there's state offices surrounding at the 7th South location, and some housing authority partners who are on the same block. And then obviously the third West location is unique in its own way as well. But the Sugar House DI never became a permanent homeless resource center. Okay.
Someone had asked about the tiny home village.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's going very well, actually, and it's in the pipeline for the city council to consider the rezone application that they took to the planning commission and had favorable recommendation. So that went through the process in fall of last year. And I don't know when it will be scheduled with the city council, but that's coming up. And
there's a pretty big group on here about the Parley's mine. Do you know anything about it?
I know that we would not like it to happen, and that there's, how much I can tell you about that. I know Laura Briefer's actually in a conference on the other side of the country right now, so I tried to get some permission about how detailed I could get. But I know that their Public Utilities is talking with the applicant about the water needs that they would be requesting, as we would with any applicant, but that there are some other processes that we're exploring around trying to stop that.
I'll be happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll try to get you a more direct answer. Tim, maybe you can help me connect with Public Utilities and follow up with Landon to distribute to the council. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You want me just to keep asking these questions?
Yeah.
All right. The problem of urban blight continues to grow. Is there a permanent homeless camp? Oh, there is a permanent homeless camp in Hidden Hollow Tunnel, and illegal RV parking has found its way to Fairmont. Reports to your departments get no action. Can you help with urban blight while you continue to work on the bigger problem of solving homelessness, drug addiction, and mental illness?
Okay, so it sounds like we're coupling urban blight and camping, or not?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The situation of unhoused people is really difficult. And yet I think it's actually something that we can solve. And I mean we as in the statewide community. And the reason I think that, well, we just did our point in time count late last week. It'll take a couple months to get that new data of how many unhoused or unsheltered people were on the street during those 3 nights. But the last good number that the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness had was about 300 unsheltered people in all of Salt Lake County. And that means there's, when you add up all the beds that are available, there's 300, we're 300 short. We're the fastest growing population in this nation, and by a lot. And it's my perception that, and I would love for someone to do this demographic research, that we have seen a proportionate growth in individuals experiencing homelessness with our population growth. So regardless, 300 individuals. Los Angeles has about 40,000 unsheltered individuals in the city. There's about, there's tens of thousands. Portland, Seattle, Denver has many thousand unsheltered individuals. So when we look at 300, not in our city even, but countywide, we should feel really encouraged. We of the state and Wayne Niederhauser and the coalition, as difficult as a time as they have in getting a city to say, yes, you can have a shelter location here. This is not an insurmountable number of people. So in the meantime, Salt Lake City developed the Community Commitment Program, which is where the city, the county, the VOA, detox services, the driver's license division, COVID vaccines, our justice courts go out to camps and engage people where they're at. Try to get to know them as individuals, what their unique needs are, what their service needs are specifically, their housing opportunities might be. Do they need a driver's license? Do they need to have the judge come to them right there and address some warrants that might be outstanding so that they can get into housing or access some benefits that they have? And that's been going on since October of 20. So, and the council funded it to become permanent last summer. We're doing more dynamic outreach than we've ever done as a city, meeting people where they're at. And I told you that we're growing the affordable housing and even the deeply affordable housing at a bigger rate than we ever have. And there's still people unhoused and unsheltered. And it's also people's prerogative to say no to our services. And that's one of the uncomfortable realities that we need to be talking about as a city. And I talked about that in the State of the City. One of those being that many of our offers, the majority of our offers for shelter are met with a no, thank you. So while we do all of this outreach and offering, I also made a decision, which we haven't done since Didi Corradini was the mayor, to do strategic enforcement of our camping ordinance. We've had an ordinance that doesn't allow tent camping on public spaces since the 60s, early 60s. And it was enforced under the Corradini administration to some degree, and it hasn't been since until my administration. So I just don't believe that it is, it's sustainable or it's the right thing to allow anyone to camp anywhere in the city for any amount of time. And so we've really broadened this spectrum of services and outreach and investment as a city. And part of that is enforcement of the camping ordinance. So we are trying. And if you have literally received no response from our homeless services team, the acronym is the HEART team, we need to hear from you. So please contact Tim Cosgrove, either in the chat or email him, or I hope it's okay, Tim, I can say, give you a call tomorrow. Or let us also share with you the phone numbers that you can call when you, or you can use the city's app, the SLC mobile, and you can even geolocate where you would like to see the services come out. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. I knew Dana would have a question for you. It's too long to read. So what is your position on short-term rentals?
Well, the state has, trying to recall what the state ordinance is right now on the short-term rentals. Somebody know off the top of their head if they've touched that yet this year?
I'll unmute Brian King.
Hey, Brian.
Representative King.
Thanks. You know, we're always messing around with short-term rentals, so I can't tell you that there's nothing in the hopper, but I'm not aware that there's anything that is currently before committees or is a hot topic. Doesn't mean that there haven't, I mean, you know, there are hundreds of bills that have been introduced, so there may very well be something, but I'm not aware of anything. And I'd also say that I think it's likely, or at least there's an excellent chance that we'll have something crop up that at least touches on short-term rentals.
Thanks, Brian. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I sure appreciate that.
That's okay. Yeah, well, you know, we're in the session, so I should know a little something about something. But
Yeah, I was going to say thanks for being here.
welcome.
In the midst of it. So you know that the city's position is reflective of whatever the current state position is, which is that there's no allowance of less than 30-day rentals if it's unless it's a hotel or motel zone. And also that the city doesn't do this, we don't seek out those rentals. So the city will not go on to Airbnb and find out where they are and then go and cite them. It's a complaint-based operation. And that at that point, if a resident or business owner or someone has a complaint about the way an Airbnb is being operated, then we'll show up and do a citation. I'll also tell you that when I travel, I usually stay in an Airbnb and I really like them. And I like them for my family. And yet I know we're in a housing crisis here and that it's a really difficult impact on, and I know some neighborhoods, this may be true in parts of Sugar House. I know this is true in parts of Capitol Hill and the avenues where entire blocks have become majority short-term rentals. And the tenor and the character of the neighborhood is really gutted for the residents who remain. So it's a tricky issue, and I've been curious to see if the state ends up taking a different approach on it, but also happy to hear your thoughts. I'd love to get an email from you or have you hear what your experience has been or what you'd like to see us do. And I know your council members on here. And of course, if we made a change, that would go through ordinance, which would be a council process that we could initiate. But we'd love to hear from you.
Let's see.
George, I don't know about, it seems like the nuisance ordinance could be used for Airbnb problems, but you know, the threshold of evidence on the way that nuisance is specifically outlined is pretty high and unique. So I don't see why it couldn't apply there because it has applied to rental units. I mean, you know, longer term rental units. So yeah.
Someone asked your position on Allen Park.
Well,
it's a great space, by the way.
I bought it, so I
Yeah.
hope you know I like it. was like the nicest thing that happened in the spring of 2020. To
How
me.
about, let's see, I think the rest of the question is your long-term plan to protect open spaces.
Yes. A little personal history. I did my master's degree work, my thesis work on the open space needs with the growing population of the 80 fastest growing cities in Utah. And of course, Salt Lake City's right up there. The more dense we become, the more valuable that open space, parks, trails, access to all of it becomes. And we've never had really big yards, so they've always been important to us, but they're going to become even more so. And I'll tell you that when I was in the first couple of years, no, when was it? When when Mayor Becker was running for his second reelection against to-be Mayor Biskupski, you might recall that the council and the Becker administration were considering a general obligation bond, massive investment in parks, open space, and trails. And it was that opportunity was shut down by Mayor Becker, kind of in the midst of the election hoo-ha. And I was opposed to that. I was in the minority. The council could have overridden it. And I lost out as one of, I think, 2 council members who wanted us to keep going with it. We as Salt Lakers are really interested in more open space preservation, better open spaces, and more ability to connect to it. And we know that because you answered our Y2 analytics survey, citizen survey last year and every 2 years before that. And it is right there at the top of things that Salt Lake residents want to see more of and better quality of. So I'll just leave it with, I'm listening and I share your interest, and you might see something coming this year.
Let's see, I think it's been 30 minutes, Mayor.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for being direct, and it's always great when you show up, so thank you.
It's fun to be with you. I hope you're well, and I hope that I can come see you in person maybe this year.
Maybe.
Okay.
Not holding out hope.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, Detective Norgard, you ready?
Yep. How was everyone tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. I'm great, thank you.
Good.
So as usual, I'll be brief. I don't have a whole lot to talk about. One of the biggest things I want to talk about is, I don't know if you remembered last month, I talked about a lot of business burglaries along the 21st South corridor, mainly between 900 and 1300 east. Those have almost dropped right off the map. So in the last month, there were 9 business burglaries, which is a substantial decrease. And there were only 2 within the area of 21st South between 9th and 13th East. So that's really good. And one of those was one of the employees left the building unsecured when they left, and somebody just walked right in. So unfortunate, but that's trending down, which is really great to see. The other thing that's spiked in your neighborhood is stolen vehicles. There were 6 in the last month, and a commonality with those, 4 of those reports, the vehicle was left running in the driveway while the owners went inside really quick to grab something. So please don't leave your cars running. If you have to warm them up, I understand, but stay close to them, okay? And the only other thing is no residential burglaries. And there were a few last month. There are 0 this month. So that's great to see. That's really all I have. Is there any questions?
Hey, Bob, and that building helped by Sugar House Barbecue coming down, that seemed to help.
Yeah. I'm still working on finding the owner of Fisher's Cyclery to get that one taken care of as well. That's been a pain to find the owners of that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Any questions?
You're gonna have to type when they chat with you,
Oh, okay.
if there are any. Have a good one.
All right. Well, I'll hang out for a bit.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
All right, next we're going to go to Salt Lake City Planning Director Nick Norris. Nick's here to talk about, let's see if we can find him. Do you have him, Brandon?
Sorry, I've been knee deep in moderation. Who's the name?
Nick Norris. Oh, I see him.
You got it.
Yeah, I got it. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Nick.
There we go. Thank
The
you.
background threw me off. You're usually in your garage.
I'm just trying to hide my location, maybe.
You want us to unmute the other planner?
If
If we see her, we
you
will.
need to, I don't know if she's around
Okay.
yet, but we were asked to come and just give an update on not so much the specifics of the former Sizzler site, but the process that application is going to go through, and some of those types of things and what to expect there. So that proposal, I'm sure everybody who's interested in that has heard, is for a convenience store at the gas station to replace the old Sizzler in that zone. It's zone CB, which is a community business zone. And for reference for what that means, it's the same zoning district that the 9th and 9th business district. Most of that area is most of like the 21st East and 21st South to 2100 South, from 2100 East to 2300 East is also zone. Most of that zone CB as well. So to give you an idea of what that zoning allows. The gas station itself is a conditional use. And so what that means is that both under state code and city code is that a conditional use is considered to be a permitted use that might generate impacts that are greater than other permitted uses, and therefore requires more oversight and a look to figure out what those impacts are and what can be done to reduce those impacts. So both the state law and the city code require that if a conditional use if there are what's identified as detrimental impacts, and our code lists a bunch of those, then the planning commission can then consider ways to reduce that impact. And so, like I said, there's a whole list of detrimental impacts that are listed there, and they're pretty typical types of things, the impact it may have to surrounding properties, environmental impacts, impacts to streets, and all those kinds of things, air quality, water quality, you name it. So right now that application is really early in the process. I believe when it was first submitted, or once it got assigned to a planner, we determined it wasn't complete, didn't have enough information, or didn't have enough correct information for us to start processing it. So we requested that information to be updated, and I'm not quite sure the status of that at this point, but all of those conditional uses will go through both a public process and an internal process where we review the proposal against various standards, and we route it to city departments. In this case, we're also routing it to the county health department. And because the property is also in what's called a groundwater recharge zone, so that limits certain types of uses and certain types of activities that can occur, and also puts additional requirements on it, including gas stations, that wouldn't apply to gas stations that are not in that recharge area. So the whole premise behind that is to protect our underground water resources, and to prevent leakage and spills and contamination of those resources, particularly because they help fill our wells that provide our drinking water. So that portion of this will be administered by Public Utilities. And so they'll be one of those agencies that reviews this to make sure that things are in place to address that and keep our water as clean as possible. And then the health department will play a similar role in identifying any other types of impacts. Like I said, this is something that the public process is typical for our other land use applications. So there'll be a notice sent to this community council, and there'll be a 45-day public input period once that notice is sent, and there'll be a more detailed presentation to this, based on how this community council chooses to handle that, and presentation from the applicant. And then we'll attend that as well. Someone from our office, Diana Martinez, who's the assigned planner for this, and answer any questions about the process and things like that. Our role really is to analyze the proposal, and if a proposal complies with all the standards and all of the potential detrimental impacts can be reduced, then legally we're obligated as a city to approve that conditional use. So that's going to be the kind of the focus of our review, and really should be the focus of the public input, is what are those potential detrimental impacts. And one thing that's really helpful in that regard is to identify things that are more objective and not subjective. And what do I mean by that? Basically, one of the comments we hear all the time about land use applications is a general statement about it's going to be detrimental to the neighborhood. Well, that may be true, but it's more beneficial if it's explained why it's detrimental to that, and if there's examples for that, because then the planning commission can respond better to those comments and consider them better. The state law specifically says that the standards they use have to be objective in nature. So that's something that we would look at. I see a couple of questions popping up in the chat, but absolutely, we look at the impact of the streets and how they're going to function, and understanding that our streets are what they are. They're not going to expand. They're not. So it's not so much the capacity of the streets that would be considered. It's the impact to how the existing infrastructure and design of the street functions. So transportation, engineering, all of those work groups within the city will be receive copies of the plans and can weigh in on those types of things. From there, once the planning commission makes a decision, they're the final decision makers on this. So it's not something that goes to the city council. It's not something that the planning staff decides. This is going to be up to the planning commission. So we can go from there. Landon, I don't know if there's anything else you would like me to cover or go into more detail with, but happy to.
You've answered all the questions. Did you see the question about the property, if the city could purchase it?
That's probably not a question for me, but because we have a land use application, we have to respond to that.
Yeah.
And we have to consider that. We're legally obligated to do that. So as far as purchasing it, that's probably up to other people in the city, and obviously up to the current property owner.
It says, is the applicant for the gas station the owner, ? Or is there a possibility someone else could purchase? And I've known we've met with several developers that have tried to figure out how to make this work, but maybe you could touch on that, Nick.
The applicant is from the company that would build or that would operate, and the property owners, they have my understanding is that they're under contract to purchase that property from the current property owner, and so they've authorized that company to submit the application on their behalf. And yes, there is an active application for that. We're working through that right now.
Thank you. I just unmuted Judy Short. Judy Short's our land use chair. She's been doing this for a long time. She really knows her stuff. Judy, can you talk about how they can get a hold of you, submit comments?
Yeah, I was just typing something in the chat.
I'll save you.
On our website, if you go to the land use section under committees, excuse me, you can send me a comment. Just your email address is fine. And I will notify you when the meeting is. And if you watch the land use reports that we put in the newsletter every month, it will be there. And maybe we can post it on our Facebook page too.
I don't know how to do that, but someone can do it for us.
I can do it.
Nick, you're Diana just joined. You want her to speak?
No, I don't think
Okay.
she has to. She can join
Okay.
and listen in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I get one of the last questions is, can we not rezone it to prohibit another gas station?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we get a lot when we have an application. And what once we have a complete application, that applicant is entitled to that process. And so once we determine it's complete, then the city couldn't come in and change the rules out from under them. And so that's something that's why we're pretty forceful in making sure that we get all of the required information that is required by our code to submit, and why we don't act on anything until we have that complete. Because once we start acting on it, the city ends up being on the hook for at least processing that. So at this point, we probably, there's not a lot of tools other than the conditional use process that are out there to stop that. In the future, sure, the city could consider whether or not gas stations are appropriate in a zone like the CB zoning district, but it would apply to future applications and not this one.
Does anybody else have any questions? You can just type them in the chat. All right, thanks, Nick. Can you answer them there if you hang around for just a minute?
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. It's better to hear it from the professionals. All right, we're going to go to Senator Iwamoto sent her intern. So I'm going to ask her to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, hi, nice to meet everyone. I couldn't change the name on there, but I'm Angie, Senator Iwamoto's intern, and she just wanted me to speak about a few things that have been happening in the session. This session has started out like pretty hectic. Senator Maine couldn't join us from the beginning, and so that was very stressful. But Senator Escamilla and Senator Iwamoto and all of the other minority caucus senators really worked hard to help take over the bills or delegate them to other senators. And Senator Iwamoto has also kept in touch with Senator Maine every day, and she's doing great, so that's good. One thing to note from the first week of session is that we started out with one pretty contentious bill, SJR 3, which tried to overturn the local mask mandates, and it unfortunately sailed through both the Senate and House floor pretty quickly, which was a little disheartening. But Senator Iwamoto has a lot of bills that she's pushing for this session, which she's really excited for. She currently has 16 bills that already have been introduced, and one more that she's waiting to be introduced. And of those 16, a few of them have already been passed from the Senate floor onto the House. Her correctional officer eligibility amendments bill, her flow rates or quantity for plumbing fixtures bill, her local election amendments bill, her Day of Remembrance observing the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II bill, and many others have already passed from the Senate floor onto the House. So that's really exciting. Today, we worked really long, and I just got home because she had 3 bills that she just presented in in different committees. One of them was driver speeding amendments, which just aims to kind of combat issues of speed racing in Utah right now. Another one is her officer intervention reporting requirements, which just tries to increase transparency and accountability for law enforcement. And that has received wide support and bipartisan support, which is really great. And she also has a lot of water issue bills that she's been working on. One of them she presented in committee today, which was her water amendments bill. And she has a few more, like her flow rates bill. She's working on one with Representative Ballard and one with Representative Abbott as well on lead testing in school facilities. And she has a lot more that will probably finish being presented in committee by the next week. And hopefully they will all be passed this session. So that's an update. And if you guys have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you. How's your experience?
It's great. It's very fast paced. And so it was hard to keep up the first week, but Senator Yumoto is like so kind and really patient. So it's been really fun working with her.
Well, thank you. Thanks for stopping by. All right, Andrew, we're going to go to you now.
Good evening to everybody. We're going to have a PowerPoint with some slides on it to give everybody some information and a visual. And yeah, and hi there, Justin. And just, is he unmuted?
Yeah, these guys are here to talk about the new Parley's Mine proposal.
Parties, yeah. And if anybody can tell what peak that is in my background, Landon and I, if the first one that answers it correctly, Landon and I will shovel your walks next time, if you can see what that is. Is the PowerPoint ready?
Yeah, you ready?
Yep, let's dive in.
Okay.
By the way, that was Grandeur Peak behind me. So, Safe Parley's. It's been going on for about 6 to 8 weeks now. I've been kind of diving into all of the information, and so we've created a website. So the next slide. We created an organization, Safe Parley's organization, to save, protect, preserve the mountains and wilderness lands in Parley's Canyon and the Wasatch Front. It's contained of mostly a group of people that not only own property in Mount Ayr, which would be adjacent to this proposed mine, but love that area for hiking and recreation and everything else that goes on with about a 6 or 8 minute drive from Salt Lake. Next slide, please. So the question is, what do you know about it? Do you know anything? We found out this week that it is actually going to be known as the I-80 South Quarry. But you can see the little outline of the yellow. That's looking down the canyon, eastward down the canyon, and you can see that that's the footprint of what that would be. Next slide. Some background information. I'll probably paraphrase a lot of this, but November 24th, the article broke in Salt Lake Tribune, which was a surprise to me and thousands of other residents and communities, that there was a proposal for both a small mine under 20 acres and a large mine of up to 634 acres of a limestone quarry 3 miles at the mouth of Parley's Canyon. December 7th, DOGM, which is the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining, issued a denial letter for the small, citing that Tree Farm, the applicant, long-term intent is to really have a large mine operation. December 10th, the county's council unanimously voted to amend ordinances in the Salt Lake Code that would eventually prohibit mining in forestry zones and foothill and canyon overlay zones, which is what Parley's Canyon is. On December 15th, Dogum issued a letter of action items back to Tree Farm regarding the proposal of their large mine operation. It contained 15 pages of some kind of action items that they had to accomplish. Next slide, please. So the mine, once dug out, blasted and hauled away, will permanently scar the mountainside. It will leave residents, recreationists, travelers, and wildlife in that to live with degraded mountain habitat, water, and air quality. And we have some before and after pictures coming up, a rendition of what it would look like. So next slide, please. If you can see, we're looking down the canyon again at the northeast face of Grandier Peak, and in the foreground is Mount Air Canyon Road. Next slide, please. So in the next decade or two, when the full operations are going, that's what the mine would look like as you're driving down Parley's Canyon. Let's go back one slide if you wouldn't mind. And then go next slide. That's kind of a visual rendition of what is proposed. Next slide, please. So it's would cover up to 634 acres. 1 square mile is 640. Go for 100 years. To put it in scale, the Copper Bingham mine across the valley is 1,900 acres. That was what it covers. So the proposed mine would be about 1/3, and that's still a very opposing and permanent scar carved into the mountainside. You're probably all familiar with exit 131. It's the Kilgore Harper mine. That's about 11.2 acres. And that's just a mere 1.7% of the size of this new proposed mine. About over 50 times larger. The size and scope of this proposed mine make it the largest mining operation within the Wasatch Front since the Point of Mountain Quarry, which began in 1974. Historically, these mines cause increased air, dust, pollution, which would affect the Salt Lake Valley, residents, businesses, schools, and public open lands for decades. Next slide, please. I've got some bullet points, 2 pages of some bullet points of impacts. The potential impacts, well, we know about water. Parley's Canyon is a protected watershed. Approximately 20% of our drinking water comes from Parley, and nearly 60% comes from the Wasatch Mountain watersheds. Dust on the snow threatens the premature melting of snowpack. That's our nature's natural reservoir of where we drink and where we get our water from. There are 2 watershed reservoirs, 1.5 and 3 miles above the mine site, that are threatened by contamination, increased sedimentation, turbidity with risk of warmer water, and the likelihood of an algae blooms. There's unhealthy respirable dust from the mine carrying downwind, which would affect tens of thousands of homes and businesses along the East Bench. Just a point of note there, the Harper mine is already spreading and carrying downwind to East Bench and to Canyon Rim area and the I-80 corridor, probably all the way down to Sugar House Park. Family residents are located as close as a 1/4 mile, and thousands of homes reside within a 4-mile radius. East Sugar House, Canyon Rim, Mill Creek, Mount Olympus, and Immigration Canyon, and more. It's an embarrassing eyesore that would be visible to millions of visitors to our city and our resort towns. Utah, a pretty great state. Next slide, please. There's going to be an increase in semi-truck traffic, estimated of about 140 trucks per day, 280 trips at peak operations. Now, so that wouldn't be immediate, but at peak operations, and who knows how many years, that's a lot of additional trucks, heightened risk of wildfire due to increased mining and trucking operations. Last year, there's already 2 fires up Parley's Canyon, wildfires. Increased pollution, including air, dust, water, noise, light, and diesel emissions. Increased potential of avalanche and rock slides from blasting and crushing. That would threaten homes, outdoor recreation activities, and the water sources that are up in that area. Destruction to landscape and ecology and loss of wildlife habitat. The nearby Harper Quarry has a very poor record of fugitive dust control and was denied expansion of its quarry by the Utah Supreme Court in 2004. This region of Parley's Canyon is zoned as forestry and recreation, meant to only allow, and I quote right out of the ordinances, Code of Ordinances, Chapter 19, uses to the extent such development is compatible with the protection of the natural and scenic resources of these areas for the continued benefit of future generations. Next slide, please. So this is everyone's backyard. It's time to save our canyons. This is a view looking over Mount Air in the foreground to Grandier Peak, and that shadowed area on the Grandier Peak would be replaced by the open pit limestone quarry. Next slide, please. So how can you help? We need individuals, organizations, businesses, and governments to engage. Three things. You can send letters, and there is, in advance, there's a February 3rd tomorrow, 4 p.m., and February 16th at 8:30 a.m., Salt Lake Planning Commission meetings. These are dealing with the Salt Lake County Council's initiation of the amendment to ordinances. And you see a email address. Her name is Wendy, and you can send letters, you can send comments, you can send documents to that. Number two is attend the public hearings, which I just mentioned, tomorrow at 4 p.m. and then Wednesday, the 16th at 8:30. And you can see that there is a place there, a link, saveparleys.org, take action. You can see how to find those meetings and when to link to those virtual meetings. Three is to email legislators and local office officials to enact meaningful changes to laws and ordinances to help us prevent degradation of land, water, and air resources. Again, there's another link right to Save Our Canyons, who has been partnering, and we've been working closely with them about how you find who your local contact leader or contact your local leaders and how to email them and send them letters. Next slide, please. So we can get involved and let our voices be heard. Please join us in this fight to protect our Wasatch Front Canyons. So Save Parleys has a website. You can follow the news at saveourcanyons.org, the latest. There's our email address. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and all of these links. This is a PowerPoint slide, but all these links are going to be now posted and copied over into the chat so that you can use a live link. And I think, Landon, tell me if this is right, but after this meeting, for all the emails that you have, I gave Landon a document that has all of these links and even more, all about the meetings, all about how to stay in contact and learn more. Landon will email that document to you. Is that right, Landon?
Yeah.
Okay. That's it for the PowerPoint. Let's see what questions are coming up.
And Justin's he's unmuted as well, I think. So if you guys have any
Justin,
we have a few minutes.
Answer questions.
We have a few minutes with these guys. If anybody wants to ask any questions in the chat, and then they can respond.
Okay. Okay. Somebody said it looks like a nightmare. Well, Wow, there's been a lot here. I haven't been.
Hey, Andrew, who has the power to okay or deny this travesty?
Well, all of us do by sounding out and hearing our voice. The important thing in the next tomorrow and the February 16th meeting, the process, the way I understand it, is the County Planning Commission, the 16th, and tomorrow the Mountainous Planning District commissioners are meeting to hear public comment and gather information, and they will give recommendations to the Salt Lake County Council, who will then adopt new regulations, approve those and get them enacted, or adjust it, or do whatever. Maybe there's going to be back and forth. I don't really know. But the first big step is the Salt Lake County Council, which will be there. I don't think there's an actual date yet posted. It's to be determined of when they're going to finally make a vote on changing the ordinances. So if the ordinances are changed, that's a pretty good roadblock. Don't know if it's a complete roadblock. The mayor mentioned earlier, Laura Briefing is working on all of the different needs of water and the protection of our water sources. And so that could be another block. We don't know exactly where the millions of gallons of water a mine of that size is going to acquire all of that water. I don't even think they even know, because they made some comments on they're still working on where all the water is coming. That's a paraphrase, but that's the gist of what I've read several times. Air quality is another big one. What is it going to do to the valley that's already inundated with a lot of problems right now? Back to the water, we live in a desert, we're in a drought, and so water is a big issue. So water, air, and whatever the county council can do to help stop these kinds of actions and these types of uses of our forestry and recreation area.
Hey, Justin, do you want to touch on the question about, has the LDS Church taken a stand on this or been solicited to oppose this?
Oh, well, I'll just reach out just separately to Bill and ask him about that. That's okay.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Let's see.
Andrew, we'll get all this stuff out. We'll get it on our pages and stuff. And there's other community councils on here that'll do the same.
Right. Okay, somebody, okay, Steve Arbach, can the PowerPoint be made available to share on social media? Yes, it can. We're working on being able to have it as a on our website file server, a files folder where this and other documents can be found. I can, it can be sent out, email to as many people who wants it, but yes, we're working on also putting it so that it can be shown through our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Let's see what else.
Representative King, do you want to talk? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you want to?
That's okay. About this particular issue?
I know you live.
Hello, Brian.
Hi, how are you, Andy?
Good.
Andy and I have talked about this, and look, I think people need to raise their voice. I'm very troubled by it. I think you've done a great job on the PowerPoint, Andy. I think that those visuals are troubling. I mean, it's one thing to talk about it in sort of a vacuum, but when you see, as you pointed out, what kind of stuff it's actually going to happen, it has an impact. And I just, well, look, I mean, not everyone on the call may feel the same way, but I look at this and think this is just not appropriate. So I think that people need to raise their voices, and it's going to be hard. The more voices are raised and the more persuasive and articulate they are, the more it's a combination of being passionate with being articulate and rational. I don't think people ought to light their hair on fire, but I do think that we ought to be, to the extent that you don't like this idea, that you ought to raise your voices in a way that is powerful. And the most powerful way of raising your voice, I think, is to be combining passion with good facts and rational thinking. And of course, if you feel differently, if you think this is a great idea or you support it for some reason, same advice applies. But I think it's hard for elected officials to ignore a large number of people who feel strongly about something. So I would encourage everyone to get activated and get involved. And of course, Andy's worked hard on this for months now. Well, at least a couple of months, and more than a couple of months. So thank you for that, Andy. And there are a lot of people behind you, and I think that's important. So we do what we can do, and hopefully that'll, in the end, that'll prevail.
Thank you. And we'll get all this information out to everybody so you can raise your voices.
Let me answer a couple of other questions that I've seen in here. Somebody, let's see, Kenneth, you asked, is there a list, tree farm of campaign contributions? There has been, and then also, let me answer that along with another question. Brett said, Granite Construction company that has been announced that would be the operator of this mine with Tree Farm. You say that they donated $10,000 to the Utah House and the Senate, I think just last month. So there was Granite Construction. Somebody else asked a question about Granite. And it has been announced, and Granite Construction is part of the Tree Farm website as well. It references it back and forth. I don't think I put it on the list. I'm sorry. I'll try to find it, but I think it's, if you Google I-80 South Quarry, you'll find their website. It's not Tree Farm website. It's not Granite Construction website. It's I-80 with or without a dash. I can't remember. I-80 southquarry.com. And you can see what they're doing. And so those are some good questions. Somebody else had a really good one that I'm going to work on. Larry had a question of a few pictures of the existing 11-acre mine, the Kilgore Harper mine, with a projection of what a 634-acre of this mine would look like would be helpful. And I agree. It's another visual of what 11 acres might look like. And then all of a sudden you put a slide over it that what 634 acres would look like. Great idea. I'll take it. I'll take that and run with it. Justin, you could probably help me with that. We can find some people in our group that we can come up with something, and then we'll get it out. I think that would be a really impactful visual. So that would be great. Let's see. Jump in here, Justin, if you see any other questions that I might be missing.
Let's see.
Somebody thinks this is going to be a dumb idea, and I agree 100%.
I think it's great what you guys are doing. So thanks for making the rounds through the community councils to get voices heard. And I'm gonna hey Andrew, I'm gonna mute you. If you keep answering questions in the chat, that would be great. And
that'd be good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So next we are going to go to so we have someone who wanted to come and say hello. She's running for US Senate to represent Utah. Her name's Becky Edwards. Go ahead, Becky.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the role of community councils. I served for 10 years in the Utah House, And I live in North Salt Lake, so my district was the North Salt Lake Bountiful area. And for my first 4 years, I actually had the part of Rose Park, and the West Point Community Council was strong entity there. And they had been sort of gerrymandered into my Davis County district. And I was happy for them, and I fought for them to get back into Salt Lake County when we redistricted in 2010, but I was heartbroken to see them go because they added a vibrancy and a perspective that enriched and broadened our understanding of issues here in Davis County. And so I know the good work that happens in these community councils across Salt Lake City, and I deeply respect your work. Sugar House has always been a kind of a special place for me because my grandfather lived in Sugar House the whole time I was growing up, and now the tables have turned, and my daughter and 4 or 3 of my grandkids live in Sugar House too. So I love your community, and always been sort of represented my family's past and now my family's future. So anyway, thanks for letting me take a few minutes here. Like I said, I served in the Utah House, and I'm currently running for the US Senate to unseat Mike Lee. And I'm running to, I see a few claps.
You're going to get a lot of claps.
I appreciate that. I'm running to unseat him in the Republican primary in June. And this is not something I take lightly, to challenge a 2-term incumbent in a solidly red state, but the level of political rhetoric and hyper politicization that he has contributed to adds to one of the most concerning things, is that he's just ineffective for the people of Utah. And over, I see opportunities that are lost, and opportunities for Utah have been foregone because he is out of touch and not a strong advocate. And I know things can be so much better. For me, while I was serving those 10 years, and actually it's good to see my former colleague. Hi, Brian.
How you doing?
Good. One of the things that was always top of mind for me was working in a bipartisan way and finding common ground, working together both across the aisle with my Democratic colleagues, and then also within the wide range of political spectrum within the Republican Party.
You were great at it too.
Oh, thank you. That's a good shout out. And some of my best pieces of legislation I ever ran were things that I collaborated with across the aisle. And I found that it was a skill set and a mindset that I had, probably coming from my background as a social worker and a marriage and family therapist, used to taking kind of conflicting groups of people in a family, or in this case as legislators, and thinking, okay, we got a lot of different opinions here. Let's see if we can figure out a solution. Let's see if we can move a way forward. And over on issues that were top of mind to the people, not just in District 20 in my area, but across the state. Things like climate change, air quality, healthcare, family, what I call the family economic prosperity issues, childcare, affordable housing, things like this that really are always top of mind for Utah families and businesses. Those were the things that I worked on and found a really effective way to get things done. And over for 10 years, I saw that model was possible. So it's especially disappointing to me when I see the position that we're in right now. And that's why I'm in this race, is to bring a better leadership to the US Senate representing the state of Utah. And my commitment always has been to be a proactive, productive, and inclusive leader for the state of Utah. And since I announced my race in the end of May, we've been going around the state, taking our message across the far reaches of the state. It's been an amazing experience to see the similarities and uniquenesses between all of the different communities, and to hear parents and business leaders talk about their challenges in Sanpete County or up in Tremont, and share some of the very same challenges that I'm hearing in urban parts of our state as well. And to see that yearning and desire for people that we can have something better. It's really gratifying. I'm going to brag for just a minute about our campaign and the momentum that we're gaining since announcing my candidacy at the end of May. We have continued to be the leading Republican challenger in this race in every metric possible, in polling, in the total amount of money raised, in number of volunteers. We have an army of over 600 people or 300 people around the state gathering signatures for us right now. We have over 1,500 lawn signs out across the state. In most importantly, in the percentage of money contributed to this campaign that has come from within the state of Utah at 89% is really a remarkable data point, and it reflects a higher percentage, at 89%, than both Mike Lee and the independent candidate combined. It's puzzling to me and deeply concerning, the amount of money when Mike Lee's money that comes from within the state of Utah is only 12%. Only 12% of his money comes from within the state of Utah. And it makes me really wonder why so many people outside this state have a vested interest in the status quo, maintaining the status quo here in the state of Utah. I know we can do better. I know that bringing people together and listening to all voices is something that I'm deeply committed to. It helped me be an effective leader in official roles like chairing the Economic Development and Workforce Services Committee, or with my Democratic colleague, Rebecca Chavez-Hauk, when we served as co-chairs of the Women in the Economy Commission. I know that doing that is the best, it's the best way, it's the most effective way to get things done. Over and over, I saw that in my service, and that's why I'm deeply committed to it in the US Senate. I know it's needed, I know we can do it, and I am looking forward to having continued conversations around the state. And if any of you are interested in finding more information out about the candidate, about the campaign, sorry, I'm going to actually just type in both my cell and also my email, and feel free to reach out. I would love to connect with any of you if you have questions or want a packet. Maybe you'd like to help gather signatures for the campaign or anything else, any way you'd like to engage with us. We would love to have your help. We actually have a lot of support in your area. And so that's kind of my very, very brief pitch about the campaign. And if, I don't know who is running the meeting, but if there are people who have questions and you want to go down, I'm not sure how much time I have, if I have a couple of minutes for really quick questions.
Sure, I'll ask this question for you.
Okay.
It's from Larry. I'm going to call him out. Do you support Donald Trump as a front runner for the next president?
I have some really deep concerns about Trump and the hold he's had on the Republican Party. I will say I voted for Biden in the last election.
Thank you. And how do people do signatures? How do they sign for you?
Okay, so on the website, a button on the homepage is signature gathering, and you can either request a packet come to you. We'll mail you a packet with a self-addressed stamped envelope you can mail back in. You could collect from your neighbors around the dinner table, take it to Costco with you, or Trader Joe's. I mean, this is Sugar House. These are Trader Joe's folks. So, I'm from North Salt Lake. Anyway, you could have it with you, collect 10 signatures, 5, 50, whatever you want, mail it back in a couple of weeks. That would be amazing. Or you can say, I don't want to collect, but I do want to sign. Put your name down and we'll have someone in your neighborhood come to you and connect with you and figure a way to make that happen. But I will say that you do need to be a Republican in order to sign the petition. So this is actually, there is a group every Saturday that is on the north and the south entrances to Liberty Park from 10 to 12. So if you are just out and about on Saturday morning, just drive by there and you can sign it there. In fact, they are kind of doing a drive-by on the south side, or get out and mingle, either way. But the website is a good place to start for that.
Awesome. Thank you for coming tonight.
Well, I really
Appreciate a lot.
appreciate
Best of
again
luck.
what you do. I loved my interaction with the West Point Community Council, and I know good work is happening here. And keep it up. This is one thing that I really got a deep appreciation for when I served in the House was the local community councils and city councils, that they're the closest to the people, and the really important work that they do helps the city and county and state do their jobs better. And I would really love, as a US Senator, to stay connected with these kinds of groups to keep sort of a finger on the pulse of the community members throughout the state. So thanks very much. And if Brian, are you going to stay on the meeting?
Yeah, for a moment. I mean, the meeting's
Okay.
not far from being done, but what do you need?
Okay, well, I was gonna say you could, maybe I'll just stay on too. I'll just stay till the end of your meeting, and then if anyone wants, like, put in the chat if you want to have like follow-up conversation, or you have any other questions for me, and I could reach out directly to you like at another time. So thanks for letting me hop in.
Of course, thank you. All right, next we're gonna go with Connor, and he's a student in city and metro planning at the University of Utah. I always like having kids on here. So Connor, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Am I able to share my screen?
Brandon, we good with that? Yeah, go ahead.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, sounds good. All right, so yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Connor Mangelson. I'm just a student at the City and Metropolitan Planning Department here at the University of Utah. I'm a part of the West Side Studio, and we're working on Salt Lake City's gentrification assessment and displacement mitigation plan. Just going to take a real quick 3 to 5 minutes just to provide a very brief overview of what the students have done so far. And then we also have a website and a survey as well. I'll put those in the chat later. All right. So there are 2 other organizations working together with us along with the city. There's Baird and Driscoll Community Planning, who is a national leader in affordable housing and policy development. And they have a deep commitment to ensuring that those who are affected by policy decisions are involved in directly shaping them. Additionally, we also have UC Berkeley as well, and their urban displacement project is the national leader in analyzing and understanding the forces that drive displacement and gentrification. And this is the team we have involved. Last semester, students interviewed 420 residents within Sugar House and collected people's stories on neighborhood change and their hopes for the future of Sugar House as well. They mapped community assets that should be preserved, and you can see their work in the link I'll put in the chat here. I'll put it at the very end. So we were able to create a story map using all these interviews, intercept surveys we took on the street as well. There's 3 main points and concerns that we noticed a recurring theme. Most of the residents had concerns on dramatic change and affordability. And one of their top priorities was keeping green space available to the general public. Yeah, so we also have a website. I will put this in chat as well. And yeah, that's it. Here, I'm gonna put the story map for your specific community, Sugar House, as well in the chat. Give me 1 second.
Hey Connor, what year in school are you?
I'm a 4th year student. Is there any questions regarding this specific plan?
Yeah, if people ask questions, they'll just be in the chat. So if you want to hang around for a few minutes.
Sounds good. And then here's the survey real quick. That's the last link right there. If you want to add to the story map itself.
I'll tell your professor you gave a great talk.
Thank you. Sounds good. All right.
Thank you. Do you mind
Thank
stop?
you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, Mike, you ready?
Yeah, hello, everybody. Got me there. Thanks for being flexible. I got some things going on here, trying to juggle a couple different things at once here. So Mike Bagley, treasurer, and Garfield, trustee. So for our treasurer's report, US bank balance, $6,591.54 as of today. PayPal balance sits at 0. You might remember from the last meeting, we had a little over $600 in that PayPal balance when I moved that over. So that was transferred over to the US bank. And then we had a few micro grant payments that we sent out. So that was some of our expenses. And I was working with the Sugar House Chamber on those. And then lastly to report, we just had our renewal with as a recognized community organization with the Salt Lake City Recorder's Office. So we took care of that compliance issue due by the end of the month of January. So
Thanks,
any
Mike.
questions, I can take them in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks for doing everything. All right, Councilwoman Ballard, you ready?
I believe so.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. It is good to see everyone. I want to first start off by saying, and now Ellen is gone, but I feel like Ellen Reddick just teased us with her background of that like palm tree and the waves and all of the things after having snow today and me being cold all day yesterday and today. So thanks a lot, Ellen. Just kidding. It's always nice that Ellen is joining our meetings. I also quickly want to just say, and I know that Angie, Senator Iwamoto's intern, is not with us right now, but thank goodness for interns. Laura Stevens, as you guys know, is the intern, my intern with the Salt Lake City Council, and is here. And I have put her on the spot before, so I'm not going to do that again. But I love seeing, and with Connor here, I love seeing our young people be activated and engaged. And in all honesty, I don't know what I'd do without Laura. You all may have received, and I think Landon received an email from Laura with just sort of an update of what we talked about last month and where we were going to go and kind of following up on things. And I think interns and the energy that they have reminds me to be energetic as well. So thank you to Angie, Laura, and Connor for the work that you do and for being active and engaged in this political system. We really couldn't do it without you. So thank you. I do want to talk about a couple of things. Also, before Becky leaves, Becky, good luck on your race. And it is always so lovely to see more women involved in politics. And it is an inspiration. Representation does matter. And I really appreciate you and you having the guts, if I can say, to put yourself out there as a colleague, as a politician myself. It's not easy. I know what you have to go through, and I'm just here on a local level, and so I can only imagine. So good luck to you, and thank you for taking that step and representing women in politics for us. I truly appreciate it. So with that, I do want to talk about a couple of things that we have talked about. Number one is, if anyone tuned in yesterday, we are picking our commission for the redistricting commission. So we have had about, I think for District 7, we've had 4 applications. In total, for all of the districts, we've had about 40, if I'm not mistaken. I will be on the subcommittee, me, Councilmember Pui, and Councilmember Pedro Eschler. So from districts 1 and 2 will also be on the subcommittee. We will be looking at all of the applications. There will be somebody from each district that will be picked to be on that redistricting commission. And then I believe we're having 2 at-large seats that could be from any district. So we'll be going through those applications. I really want to give a shout out to the 4 people that applied from D7 to represent us. In reality, based on the numbers from the census, I'm not sure that our district will change that much. What we saw with the census numbers is that I always get Alejandro and Victoria's. So D1, Alejandro's district, and D4, Anna's district. So D1 represents a lot of the Marmalade area and the west side. And then D4 is Anna's district, which is the downtown area. Those 2 districts are really going to change a lot. So what we have seen is that D4 has about 6,000 more residents in it than, like, if we were to take the whole population and divide it by 7, which is basically what we have to do in order for redistricting. D4 has about 6,000 or so more residents than their sort of allotted number, if you will. And D2, Alejandro's district, has about 4,000 less. So those 2 districts are really going to have to shift and change. Our district hasn't changed really that much. We're within the 2% of sort of that plus and minus that we can have as we're looking at what those numbers look like, at those equal numbers. The idea is that each district has an equal number, right? With a plus or minus of about 2%. So we're kind of there. I can't imagine that will change that much unless the commission decides that, based on commonalities, based on sort of neighborhoods and what the community wants, that those lines may need to change. But that will be up to the independent commission that we as a subcommittee will kind of weed out those 40 applications and then take it to the council as a whole. So that will be coming up. Again, I want to thank everyone that did apply. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I don't know, again, if you tuned in yesterday, there was a briefing on a change in the master plan for Sugar House and a zone change sort of regarding the old DI site and the old fire station over by Fairmont Park. And all that is doing is combining so the RDA owns both of those properties, both the DI and the old fire station. And so it's just kind of combining it into one zone so that it can be developed. Now, what I brought up yesterday and that I'm really pushing for, and I think that the RDA has done a good job over the last few years, is to make sure that we have community empowered development, that before anything happens there, that we really engage with our community. I know, because I live down the street, that there are about 1 million apartments in Sugar House. I'm not sure I'm exaggerating. It feels like 1 million. And I know that the community is sort of done and we're tired of all of the construction. And so it's very, very important to me that as we look at those properties, especially since the RDA owns it, right? When we have private property that other people own, there's not, unless they come to the city or the planning commission or us, there's not a lot I can do if they want to develop something, right? If they're within the zone that they are in, they can kind of do whatever they want on their private property. But we have an opportunity here with the RDA owning that property to really say, nope, what does the community want here? What is really going to be the best for the community in that area, especially with it being right by Fairmount Park. As I talked about last time, and as many of you know, we're really working on the Boys and Girls Club and the tennis courts. I got into this business of being a politician because of those damn tennis courts. And I promised myself and the community that by the time I'm done with any sort of political action here, we will have something on those tennis courts. And so I think we have, again, a unique opportunity to take those 2 parcels with the DI site and the old fire station and create something that is truly a community benefit. And so I will be calling on all of you when we get to that stage to reach out to the RDA and have that community empowered development and community led development. It's something that we actually started doing with the Fleet Block, and Ashley Cleveland, who works for this city, has done just an outstanding, fabulous job in that community empowered development. And I want to continue that model, especially here in Sugar House. So I will keep you updated on what we're doing with the DI and the old fire station. Going to the Parley's mine, I just wanted to touch on that since we brought it up. There were some questions about what we can do. As was stated by Andrew, this is in the county, but I also think we're in the middle of a legislative session, which is very scary for me as a Salt Lake City representative. But Speaker Wilson has talked a lot about saving the Great Salt Lake, which we all know we need to save. And so if you want to reach out to Speaker Wilson and say, one of the ways to save the Great Salt Lake is not to divert a bunch of water. If to Representative King's point, if you're opposed to this, is to reach out and say, if we actually want to save the Great Salt Lake, we shouldn't divert, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water to a mine. I'm just throwing that out there. Just, maybe you'd want to reach out to Brad. So in all reality, I think that because we're in the midst of a legislative session, now is the time to Representative King's point, now is the time to have your voice heard. And people are listening, and we do listen as politicians. It may not always seem that way, but I can promise you we do. And really with that project, you have 2 competing ideas, right? You have this idea of saving water and the idea of development. And I think that I think there's a way to leverage this, and your voices are the way to leverage that. And then, of course, the old Sizzler site, I have received many emails, and I thank you all for the emails. As was mentioned earlier, unfortunately, I don't anticipate this coming to the council. And I will do everything I possibly can. I'm not sure a lot that I can do, but I think that there are probably a lot of other beautiful things that could be done with that corner. I'm just going to leave that there. I am trying to think. Budget amendment number 6 was in our council meeting briefing yesterday. And then, of course, we're in the legislative session. If anybody's interested in bills that are and can affect Salt Lake City, we do have a legislative update every council meeting during our work sessions. So please tune into that, and or if you have questions, please reach out to me and Laura. Laura will help me figure out all of the answers to the questions. But there are a lot of bills, as always, that affect Salt Lake City. And particularly the ones that I find myself most concerned with are water bills. Once again, there will be a bill that tries to limit Salt Lake City's ability to protect our watersheds. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Salt Lake City has entered several water contests over the years, and we have and we have won as the best tasting water in the country. And the reason that we have won the best tasting water in the country is because we are so diligent and vigilant about protecting our watersheds. And every few years, a bill comes up that says Salt Lake City, because it's outside of the jurisdiction of our actual city boundaries, a bill will come up saying that Salt Lake City shouldn't have any power or right over those watersheds. But instead, the cities in the area, like Little Cottonwood or Big Cottonwood, or should be able to say what happens. The problem is that we provide drinking water for 90% of the valley, probably even 100% of the valley, and then some. So those bills are certainly important, and I would encourage each of you to look at that bill and reach out to legislators, particularly. I know that the legislators that represent Salt Lake City always have us in mind. I think if you have any relationships or know people that don't necessarily represent Salt Lake City but are outside, that reach out to those legislators as well if you have those relationships. It's awfully important. Laura, can you think of anything else that I'm missing as far as updates? I can't think of anything. Obviously after a legislative session, the budget will be coming up, and we'll get a proposed budget from the mayor soon. Laura, anything that you can think of?
Nothing unless golf.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I appreciate it. We are planning a little Sugar House golf tournament at what my friends and I affectionately call the Sugar House Country Club at Forestdale, i.e. our Forestdale golf course. And the idea would be that we have a little golf tournament, and the proceeds would go to replanting trees on the golf course, because after the windstorm and just the age of the trees over at Forestdale, many of them have had to be taken out or torn down. And so that is the idea, and we will keep everybody updated. Laura's done an amazing job at helping me get that organized, and so we'll keep everyone updated on a little fun Sugar House Country Club golf tournament. So, and it is the oldest golf course in the state of Utah, by the way. But I think that is everything. I can answer questions in the chat, Landon, if that's.
Thank you. Thank you. We're just going to go quickly to Sharif to talk about the Sprague light. She always gets a moment to talk, so go ahead.
Thank you, Landon. So you guys might have heard that we had to close Main, the downtown location, due to staffing shortages with COVID. And it doesn't look like we'll be able to open up the downtown location until around February 22nd. So with that, we have seen a huge increase of people from all over that we don't normally see, which has been fun to invite people into our new building. And then the only other announcement is, if you guys are really into reading, we just launched a brand new reading challenge for adults. So if you want kind of like a year-long challenge, come check it out. It's called the 50 Books Challenge. And you read 25 from a list of prompts that we give you, and then 25 free choice. And we are still passing out the N95 masks. We still have a good supply. So if anybody needs some, please come into the library and get some masks. And I think that's everything, Landon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You good? All right, Andrew, go ahead.
Just had one parting comment concerning the proposal of the mine in Parley's is to write comment letters. And I would like to have, is Amy still there? Yeah, Amy, you're still there. I asked a question about the council, Salt Lake City Council as a group should write a letter. And Landon, you've written a letter to a week or so ago to Dogum, the board of Dogum. And can you update that letter and send it to the commissioners of Salt Lake County? So my call to action is to have people write letters to the county commissions, the mountainous district, the county planning, and especially the county council in support of them passing an amendment to prohibit mining and mining operations in forestry land. So that's it. It's been a fun evening. 2 hours went by either slow or fast. I don't know which. It's all up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody who comes on every month. Thanks to all the new faces we saw tonight, and we'll see you in March.
Okay.